good people. And
Right.
so a lot of the people, like even Eve to Adam, I met Taki 14 years ago when he was opening for Daughtry, at a local show. And so my relationships typically are long lasting. They're lifelong. And I just don't like to have bad relationships or have bad people, I just don't have time. No room.
So is that something you take into consideration when you're going to manage a band? Let's say there's a band you like, and you know what? They need a good manager. I'm available. They're looking for a new one maybe. If you don't personally really like them that much as people, do you kind of tend to stay away even if you like their music?
Yeah, I think you have to work with people that you want to represent them.
Right.
And I think it's just immensely important, right? That when you go out and you work with an artist, no different than working for a Fortune 500 company, right? Like, if you're going to go work for Google or Apple or, Tesla, I mean, you got to represent. And I think the same thing for me goes with artistry and artist management is that, being able to represent the artist with the highest integrity and morals and values, but, what they stand for, what they're about. And sometimes, I got to have them explain the lyrics to me. Like what's the message, and those type of things. But yeah, I definitely think those relationships that you keep close in your life, you're gonna spend a lot of time with somebody, and invest in them. You've got to be good with what's going on.
Right. Now, and you said earlier you have 5 artists that you manage right now. Is that like an average number for you? Do you ever go more than 5? Is it ever just like a couple at a time, or I guess it would fluctuate, right?
It would, I look at, because the amount of activity and the things that are going on, I think, one of the things that's important to understand is that, the more people get managed or the folks, the more diluted things get, right? And, I've met people and they haven't talked to their manager in, months and they don't get called back. And I'm like, that I'm, 24/7, I work. For my artist, and I'm always available, always get back to them, always respond. But I collaborate a lot of projects. Like I'm working with a band, the Ghost Town Rebellion, who's got a single coming out. They've been working on it.
Right. Yeah. I'm friends with Sean. And they've been on the show.
So we work together. So I don't manage the band, but we've been working on collaborating for over a year and working on content, the development of the album. I'm gonna release it. Just sent me the video, got the final edits on the single artwork for a Rabbit Hole. He was just messaging me here about an hour ago.
That's their newest song, right? Rabbit Hole.
Rabbit Hole is going to be the new single.
Okay,
I'll send it to you so that you can see it. I'll send you a private link for the video. But
awesome. Just
really, really an awesome track, man. The video was done so well. But I work on, somebody wants to release a song. I work with a group called Inner Image out of Texas, and they were in Houston, and we started working on some stuff for a few months. So sometimes if somebody wants to work with me, maybe they're going to release a single, or maybe they need help with solidifying a relationship with a booking agent.
Right.
Maybe they need to do a press release because they've had some changes and they need somebody that has a good PR person. And I work with Shauna O'Donnell, and she's great. She works with a lot of A-listers. As far as, PR is concerned. So I've surrounded myself with just great, talented people. Now we all kind of like are on the same page with just wanting to do the best things for artists and then, getting the best outcomes. So
you want to play Eve to Adam, right? But before I play that, I do want to ask you, would you say that with the different bands and with your management style, do you categorize like booking agent, record label, distribution? Like, do you have categories that you have to go across and check off the list as a band manager?
I think that's kind of the vetting process, about like where people are at. And in order for me to say I'm going to manage somebody, I manage, I manage a group called Dreamers Crime, and we're going to be releasing a single on the 23rd of this month, and the guys are in Australia. And,
nice.
One of the things for them was being, to establish relationships here in the U.S. because they've toured the Philippines, they've toured Vietnam, they've done some touring for a couple of years, but they haven't established themselves here. So, like, for their goal is to work through the U.S. and the UK, right? So that's for them. And, versus like Rev Theory has done the U.S. tour, right? So, I mean, they've toured with everything from Avenged Sevenfold and then Five Finger, and they've, Buck Cherry, Hinder took them out for a long time. And, but Evanescence had got their feet wet over in Europe in 2008. Amy Lee took them over to Europe. So our focus for Rev, because they've done a lot of the U.S. stuff, is to grow them down to South America and in Europe, and then come back. So it's like each artist and the needs, they vary. So it isn't like a cookie cutter approach and be like, hey, here's the deal. Like, there is a process to release music. There's a process for certain things you need to be doing to engage your fans. But
so 5 bands could be a lot on your plate.
It is. I think it's a good number. I have a band, Chaos Magic Katarina. She's down in Chile, and she's releasing her 3rd album through Frontiers. She's signed to an Italian label, and they've done some U.S. touring, but she's not done South America, and she's not done the U.S. And then it's just like each group. Tulip's a symphonic metal band that's out of Dallas, Texas, who went out with Evergrey. And we're working on some things. We're about to release an EP here for their new material. And, again, the needs they're different. So whether it's the touring, Rev is not going to be touring the U.S. right now. They're going to be touring international. They're going to come back to the U.S. versus the guys that are in Australia. They want to come here. They want to come to the U.S.
Right. Yeah, dude, that I just imagine how much. I'm sure you write everything down. I would assume you write everything down somewhere. I do want to play Eve to Adam. I always thought this band was called From Eve to Adam for some reason. I don't know why I thought that.
I mean, this is actually their 20th year commemorative on their first album that they had started with Desmond Child. So we're going to be doing a project here in his honor this year because talking to guys, that's who actually he got started with was Desmond.
Awesome. And what's the name of this song we're going to play?
Day Drinking.
There you go.
I can't. Can't get him on the phone. I've been trying. We got to keep trying. Keep trying. It's got to answer. Keep trying.
Keep going.
We'll try him one more time. We can't miss the show.
He's not answering, man. I've been trying. I need a drink.
Hell yeah, man! I wonder if they actually got drunk in the making of that that film.
I got a hangover just watching it.
Dude, we are totally getting dinged on YouTube, and we're getting hella dinged, dude. We're getting hella dinged on YouTube and Facebook.
We don't make any money off of this anyway, so.
No, that's true. We do not. So
it's about sharing the music, right, Dean?
It is, man.
That's right. That's right. I think it's interesting to have a band manager on. I think it's neat. Instead of your bands coming on, we have you on, and we get to have more bands than just one.
The number one question, right, is always, I think, Sam, when he sent me the note, I was like, which band? It was just about the interview. And, of course, I always, it's kind of like from high to low, right? Like just meaning like popularity-wise and people that know that I associate with certain people, I work with certain people, I manage certain people. So, typically I always kind of can guess, who it's going to be about, at least, in current state. And then he's like, no, you. And I'm like, for what? He said,
it's interesting. It's really interesting for people that are in bands to hear another perspective instead of just another band. They want to hear, like, bands are going to love this interview over anyone.
All right. For reason why I picked it is because I'm the one spewing the same thing you've been spewing this whole entire time. So maybe if someone else hears another manager say the same thing, then they'll maybe start getting it, start figuring it out. I doubt it because you and I both know there's a level of people in this industry. So that will listen, and then there's the others that will not listen. They do it their own way, which is fine. They're entitled to it. So, but I wanted to hear from you the exact same stuff I've been spewing for, I don't know, what now, 30 episodes?
A lot.
Yeah. I tell folks, everything's possible. It's one of these things where, you got to believe, you got to have faith, but I mean, you have to be tenacious with how hard you work, right? And you have to, go to sleep thinking about it, wake up thinking about it. But everything's possible. I mean, I look at everything from, who I've met and where I've been and the relationships and, the things that have just kind of, that have just happened. And, if you were to write them down, people are like, they'd probably say no way. And I'm like, man, if you believe everything's possible in life, it truly will start to present itself. And what I find, Sam, and you probably do too, Sebastian, you probably hear a lot about this, is all the reasons why it isn't. And I'm like, well, if that's the focus,